Good morning, everyone. We are continuing here in the words of the Beis Halevi in his Maimah Bitachon. We're coming to the close or near to the end of this amazing, magnificent sefer that we've been learning. Yet we'll see, Baruch Hashem, there's much more for us to learn after this in the world of Bitachon as well. But he spoke about yesterday the concept of La'amal Yulades Ha'adam. Man was created, we were born to work hard and to toil. And what is that effort that we're going to put into this world? So he says like this, Dahainu, that means Yitzirasa Shala Adam, the creation of man, Ikaroi, was primarily made Hurak Liyigia. We were made to work hard, to strain ourselves, V'amal, and work with great effort. Rak, however, ha-bechira teluya bai be'eza amal yivchar. One's bechira, one's free will, is in their hands to decide whichever kind of life they want to toil in. We can't sit back on our laurels and do nothing, says the Beis Halevi. That's not what our creation was for. We can't sit around and do nothing. That's not why we're put here. Everybody has this desire to do something. You see some people are running out for business. Some people are putting slam dunks. Some people are out there to make their name famous. There's other people that are running around the world on their bucket list of going to every single place under the sun that they want to go visit and they want to see. Some people get excited. They're the foodie generation. They have to go to this restaurant and that restaurant and take pictures and send out the pictures. Everybody should see them. We were not put into this world just to sit back and relax. Everybody has some kind of a drive that's inside of them to go and accomplish and do something. Whether it's making millions, or it's starting chesed organizations, or it means going to school even if you're an older person and getting a new degree so you can do something else with your life. All of these things, everybody has a ratzon, they have a desire to do and to accomplish. Hopefully a person has such a burning desire inside. And we were created la'amal, to work hard. So the question is, what are we going to put our energies into? Are we going to put our energies into the world, into worldly matters and the like? Or are we going to use our bechira, we're going to use our free will for something that is more noble, and to be amal ba'Torah, to toil away in a life of Torah, a life of mitzvahs, a life of learning, a life of davening, a life of Yom Tiv, a life of nachas, a life of working on our midas, a life that is in line with that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. And therefore he says, that choice, says the Beis Halevi, that's up to you. You don't have a choice. That you are going to work, you have to work in this world. That's the nature of our creation. That's the primary cause of why we came here. What you're going to decide to put your effort into, that, says the Beis Halevi, is going to be up to you. And he goes on, he says, if a person decides that they want to throw themselves into toiling away in the Torah, they will not then need to engage in the mundane activities of this world. They will not have to work hard to make a livelihood. Simply put, the reason they will not have to is because the Gashmi, the physicality of this world, is so much more meaningless to them than to the average person. They don't need the extras. When the Mishnah says, Pas b'melech teichal, v'mayim tishra tishteh, v'al-aretz tishayin, ki kachi darcha Torah, when the Mishnah says, a little bit of bread, a little bit of water, and a person, you can sleep on the floor, that is the way of the Torah. It doesn't mean that you have to live in that way. What it means is, because that my primary occupation in this world is Torah and mitzvahs, what gives me the real simcha in life and gives me the real hana, the pleasure, is when I'm connected to the world of the Ribbono Shel Olam through the Torah and the mitzvahs that I am keeping. So therefore, I'm not looking for the large steak. I don't need the luxurious house. I don't need a fancy car. I don't need a comfortable Sili Pachapedic bed that will shape with my body and my neck to make sure that I have the most comfortable sleep in the world. All of that is irrelevant to me, says the Talmud Chacham, says the person who engages themselves into learning, because for me the most important thing is Amal B'Torah, is working hard in the Torah and the mitzvahs and Avodas Hashem. And therefore, if I needed to, I could live with the bare minimum. Says the Beis Halevi, if a person chooses to put in their energies to Amelis B'Torah, which means toiling away in a life of Avodas Hashem, so then they will not need to engage in mundane activities in order to make a livelihood, simply put, because they don't need a major livelihood. It's enough, the bare minimum and the basics, because that will make them happy. That will bring them joy. We'll end up with this story right now for today. There's a famous story with the great sage, not the Meshech Chochmah, but the Or Sameach. The Or Sameach was once sitting by the hearth, by the stove with his wife. In the olden days, what did they have? They had a little tiny fireplace maybe in the house to try to keep them warm. It was a cold winter night. His wife was busy perhaps knitting or sewing, and he was sitting by the fire with some light to be able to learn Torah. And they lived in a little tiny dilapidated shack with tin roof. When it would rain, the water would come and leak in. They were so poor that they couldn't afford 2 plates for milchigs and fleischigs. So they had a table that was made out of wood, and carved into one side was a bowl for the milchig, and carved into the other side was a bowl for the fleischigs. That's how they survived, and that's how they ate. They had nothing in the physical world, but the Or Sameach was busy learning that night, and as he was learning by the firelight, he ended up coming up with a tremendous chiddush, a tremendous insight into the Torah. And he got exceedingly happy. And his wife looks up and she sees her husband, the great Or Sameach, with the most gigantic smile on his face, and she realizes that her husband must have had such an insight into Torah that he was elated from his learning. And then suddenly she watches her husband's face change, and he goes from simcha to what looks like atzvus, to looks like he's sad and depressed. She says, "My dear husband, is everything all right?" And he said, "I was thinking to myself, I'm sitting by the fire, I'm learning HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. I just had such a phenomenal insight that I never had before. And I look around and I have everything, a roof over my head, a fire in the fireplace, a wife, a table, a chair. And I have, of course, the most important, I have the Torah with me." He said, "I got such a hana, such a pleasure. I couldn't imagine that there's any greater pleasure in this world." And then I began to ask myself, maybe because of all the great pleasure that I'm receiving in this world, I'm giving up my reward and my pleasure in the world to come. And that's what bothered me so much. This is the life of a Jew who spends his life toiling away in Torah and in mitzvahs and tefillah and avodas Hashem and tikkun amidos. A person who does that, his simcha is in the world of ruchni. His simcha is not in the world of gashmi, and therefore he doesn't need to spend so much time, because less for him is more. Less gashmius is more ruchnius, and for such a person, that is the focus of their lives. Have a wonderful day.